It's become so clear now that the brain is always rewiring with neuroplasticity. That's you being able to rewire the roads and the patterns in your brain. The brain gets good at what you repeat, not what's true. And it works because the brain doesn't really know the difference between what's real and what's imagined. It's the things we read, it's the things we watch, it's what we're listening to. And to have a good mental diet, you need to be feeding yourself with stuff that actually serves you.
Maya Raichoora is the UK's leading mental fitness and visualization expert, dedicated to helping elite athletes, executives, and global brands think, feel, and perform like the top 1%. She made history as Nike's first ever mental fitness trainer and has transformed thousands of lives worldwide through her pioneering approach. Let's start off by talking about the difference between mental fitness and mental health.
Okay, yeah. So mental health, everyone talks about it. And really, if you've got a mind, you have a mental health. It's a bit like if you've got a body, you've got physical health. But if you think about our bodies, you're only physically fit if you, let's say, go to the gym, you do yoga, running, dancing, whatever it might be. So in the same way, you're only mentally fit if you are actively training the brain. And I think, whenever I'm on like panels or having conversations with people at schools or companies, everyone stops at the awareness of mental health. But then what's after that? Like, what are you actually doing about it? It's like me sitting here being like, running is so good for you, but then we never go on a run. Now that's the problem. And I think it's also worth saying that then you have mental illness, which is where, just like when you get physically ill, you would go to a doctor or, you might be injured. So in the same way, you would go and seek help. And then you also have mental weakness, which is a very human thing. Maybe you've had a bad sleep or you've had heartbreak, something's happened. So naturally, you're not going to be performing the best you can mentally. But then again, do you have the tools to come back to a better state of mental health because you know how to stay mentally fit? So it's really a spectrum, but ultimately, mental fitness is when you are empowered with the tools to maintain good mental health.
I love that. I love that. And what it really is like something that has tangibility to it versus like health seems to be this kind of broad, very difficult to move thing. But fitness is something that's more like proactive, malleable, is something that I have more influence over. And I think that's a good lead in because, as you know, and we talked a little bit about this before we got started, mental health there's a lot of stigma behind it, right? And it seems to be, unfortunately, more fixed. Like I have poor mental health or I have good mental health. And just the conversation around it. And so to put in the terms of mental fitness makes it something that we have some power over. And you've actually broken down what constitutes good mental fitness.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some of these points. I really want to dig in on each one of these, by the way.
Yeah. So I think it was, I think you're right. Everyone talks about their mind when something is really wrong. And it's the same thing. You don't just go to the gym if you are obese or unhappy or, injured. You would go to maintain a good life. And so I thought to directly, basically, use the analogy. So when it comes to mental fitness, you've got cardio. Cardio is, are you using your brain? So whether that's debates, whether it's questions, whether it's you're learning something like a new language, are you using the brain? You've got to use it, otherwise you lose it. Then we have reps. Reps are really important because ultimately it's consistency. It's the same as you don't get abs overnight. In the same way, a lot of people want like a quick fix to their mind, or they just want to get rid of all of the anxiety or negative thoughts. But it really is about the little things you do every day that build that consistency. Then you have rest. So just like, again, with the body, you may use sleep or massages, things like that. The brain also needs rest. And the brain is interesting because when you go to sleep, it's still pretty active. It's dreaming, right? It's thinking. And so we really need a form of active rest. And that can be, again, it can be meditation, it could be sleep, it can be any form of just letting your mind switch off just for a moment. Then we have strength training. And this is really my niche. And strength training, just like the body, you essentially rip the muscle to make it bigger, better, stronger. And you can only do that with the weight training. And so for the brain, that's basically neuroplasticity. That's you being able to rewire the roads and the patterns in your brain. And that's where visualization is such a powerful tool to build a stronger brain so you can think, feel, and perform better than you ever have. And then we lastly have diet. And this isn't food. This is really the thing we consume the most in the world, which is content. It's the things we read. It's the things we watch. It's what we're listening to. And to have a good mental diet, you need to be feeding yourself with stuff that actually serves you. Whereas most people, we will watch, I don't know, reality TV, or, you know, we gossip, we compare ourselves, we're on social media. All of that is feeding like the bad wolf in the brain. And so just thinking about, what am I inputting into my brain? So those are the 5 components. And it's not to say, okay, you've got to do all of these immediately. Just start with one of them, and do one little thing to help that area. And then you can build it over time.
Yeah. I would imagine that great mental fitness is a lot like great physical fitness. Like, you can do so much, and so much of life becomes easier and accessible to you. And so my advocacy for everybody is like, this is something I'm hoping that you really want to have. You really want to have good mental fitness. And there are very practical things we could do to get there. I want to stay with diet first, because I want to dig in on all these so everybody can feel like, I know what to do. Give me some practical things. You mentioned, and this just with diet, there's so many great analogies here, but like, I remember even when I was in college, like, you are what you eat.
Yeah.
You are what you eat. It's so superficial in the way that it sounds, but there is a lot of practicality to it, because what you eat does become a part of you and used to run processes. But it's short-sighted, because it's not just you are what you eat as far as like making your tissues. It's you are what you drink, you are what you breathe. It's also you are what you consume mentally as well. Because, and this is the big takeaway, when you're scrolling through your social media, what you're picking up is becoming, and especially if you're habitually watching certain things, it becomes a physical part of your brain. Yeah. It becomes a physical part of your body. And your brain isn't just in your brain, by the way. Like, your cells are picking up this data. And what are you habituating? What is your mental diet? And so with that being said, pretty much everybody's scrolling today. So what do you recommend as far as like that mental diet? Because we're going to be consuming stuff.
Yeah, so 2 very, very simple things you can do to improve your mental diet. Number 1, I would honestly look through whether it's the people you follow, it's the content you are watching, and just unfollow or curate your algorithm so it's actually helping you. So rather than, let's say, watching people that when you see them, you're like, oh, I wish I could be like that, or their life is so much better, you're constantly then telling yourself you're not good enough or you're really behind. Do you think you're going to feel good? No. So just unfollow it, even if they are your friends. It doesn't matter. Be selfish. If it does not serve you, get rid of it. The second thing, and this is very practical, is as soon as you wake up in the morning, your brain is a bit like, it's like fresh snow. And just think, what is the first footstep I want to make in that fresh snow? Now, for most of us, it's let me look at my emails, let me get really stressed, or let me put the news on and just feel like, oh my God, the world is a really scary place. But instead, if you can be intentional with, okay, I'm going to say, show me how good it gets today. Or I'm going to just take one moment to think of something I'm grateful for. Or I am going to close my eyes and just take a few deep breaths. That one moment of intentionality paves the way for that first bit of the fresh snow, which then can help you carry on your day with just a better chance of feeling more positive or more calm or more confident. And I'll just tell you a little story about a client I had where, you know, she's such a high performer, brilliant at work, everything. And then she was like, Maya, my relationship is just falling apart. I was like, what's going on? She was like, I just keep lashing out. Like, I just lash out for no reason. And I like create arguments for, again, no reason. I was like, okay. Instead of even going into the depths of what was going on, I just asked her, I was like, what are you watching at the moment? And you know what's really fascinating? Because she gets home and she's really stressed and tired, she just puts on those like reality TV shows that, you know, you see all these couples arguing, or it's like, I mean, it's just for TV. But what she didn't realize is that she's learning that behavior. Her neurons in her brain are like telling her to act like that. And so naturally, with her own partner, without her knowing it, she's going to start mimicking what she's watching. So I just said to her, why don't you decide to either watch something that's more relaxing, calming, or useful, or you know what? Don't watch TV, listen to some music, read a book or something. And genuinely, within a week, she was just like, I just feel so much calmer and I don't react like that. Yeah. But it also works in the other way, right? Like there's this great sports coach who works with a baseball team, and they had never been to the Worlds before. And so what he did is in their changing room, he would put this TV on of a team, it was just a random team playing at the Worlds. And naturally, as the players were going into the changing room, they'd just be watching this. But very slowly, it's priming their brain to show them, this could be me, or this is me. And so you can see that whether it's adverts, whether it's TV, whether it's what you say to yourself in the morning, it matters. But you have the power to just take that one step, and then it gives you the right foot to start on.
Oh, that's so good. So you mentioned, and by the way, you talk a lot about this in the book as well, in setting the framework for how powerful this is with our mirror neurons, right? And so this was years ago. We'll put that episode for everybody in the show notes, but we had on Dr. Daniel Goleman, who really pushed that into popular culture.
Yes.
And one of the things that he shared, and it's even more present today, is that when we're witnessing something, there's a part of us, these cells that are simulating us doing what we're witnessing. It's a big part of how we learn, you know, and one of the things that's kind of built into us as human beings. And so this is why we feel what we felt. When you just mentioned the baseball game, for example, like that feeling, being a fan, like you feel like you're in the game, right? It's because of these mirror neurons. There's a part of you that's simulating you being in it. And with this being said, like this is very powerful. So are you chronically like watching The Walking Dead? Are you like, you know, constantly watching, like you just mentioned, these, you know, dating shows and reality TV? And just to be clear, it's out here, all right? And this doesn't mean that you can't have a little, we'll call it a little junk food.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Cheat day. Have your cheat meals.
You know,
For
but
sure.
if that becomes the predominant part of your diet, the bulk of your diet is junk food, no disrespect, but like junk food, what do you think that's going to do to your brain and your mental fitness, right? Yeah. So keep that in mind.
And I think really at the foundation of all of this, it's awareness. Like, don't get me wrong. I have days where I just want to lay in bed and watch Netflix the whole day. But because I'm aware I'm doing it, and I'm like, you know what, today I'm choosing to do that, it's so different because I'm not just blindly, you know, watching all these things and not realizing what it's doing to me. This allows me to then like reset. If I've just watched a really like dramatic movie or show, okay, I'm aware that is what it's going to do to me. So I'll just take a moment and then go back to life again. So it really is about awareness. That's what's key about the diet.
Yeah. And we tend to seek out things that kind of are matching the energy as well. I haven't shared this before. I'm going to just go ahead and share it. So last year, I had a very challenging year. Just a lot of changes at one time. You know, people passing away in my family, kids moving out the house, a lot of stuff happened at once. And there's, just to mention The Walking Dead, I'd never watch anything like that. I'm not trying to watch zombies and all this stuff. But I knew that it was a good show. It had all these seasons. And, you know, during this downtime of a year, I put this on and my wife and I started watching The Walking Dead together. All right. And we got in it, right? Because, you know, of course, with Netflix, it's just all right there. Yeah. Next episode. And it's like a apocalyptic, you know, doomsday scenario, a lot of human drama. But there's these beautiful moments as well, which is great TV. But there came a point where it's just like, yo, this doesn't feel good. Like, this is like, I don't feel like this is matching where I want to be. Like, there's this doom and gloom kind of vibe about the show, and you never walk away feeling great. Yeah. You know? And there's this particular character named Negan. He's like one of the worst TV villains of all time. And at this point, it's like in the next season with him, I'm just like, oh, they're just doing a Tom and Jerry cat and mouse thing. They're never going to get them. And it's just like, I started getting a little annoyed. And my wife wanted to keep watching. I'm like, I'm out. I can't do it anymore. So I stopped watching it. And just so happened, things started turning around and getting better around that time. Now, I'm not saying this was a chicken or egg scenario, but my energy just didn't feel like that was a good compliment to be investing my time and energy into. And she ended up watching like one more season. And she was like, you know what? You were right. You know, and he, by the way, Negan is still out here on the streets. I think they got like a whole new spin-off show, multiple seasons, whatever. Because you just want Negan to get taken out. Unfortunately, respectfully, but you know, I could see where it was going, and I saw that it wasn't adding value for me.
Yeah, and look, it's addictive, right? Like the shows that do really well are the ones that have most problems or the dramas, and that's just because humans are addicted to that stuff. Partly because we relate to it. And partly just because we're so used to it that, of course, we're going to watch it. It's like you have it in your day-to-day life and then you're like, no, let me watch more of it so I can just, feel even worse. But I think as well, you are right. Like I remember, watching some stuff now, for example, but because I'm in a very different mindset, I notice different things. I learn different things. And I think that also just says it, right? So again, the awareness, just know, okay, how am I feeling and why am I watching it? Because sometimes if I'm sad, I love watching a sad movie or I love listening to sad music. It's actually a way to help me just feel it even more. So it's all good. But again, awareness. I'm aware that I'm choosing to feel even sadder for a reason. Just start really small though. Just think, how can I start to curate what I'm actually inputting into my brain? And that includes self-talk as well. Not just the things you watch, it's also the things you say to yourself. Because that's actually everyone's worst mental diet, It's the little snacks that they have. Like, that's the bad bit. Because most of us are, whether we're putting ourselves down or we are judging ourselves, telling ourselves we can't do it. And so if you can just start to give yourself and feed yourself words and sentences and ideas that are just a bit more healthier for you, then you'll start to also see those differences.
Yes. Love it. Okay, so we've got diet covered pretty well. So let's be intentional about what we're consuming mentally. And I want to ask you a little bit more about cardio, because that was one that, again, just using this fitness comparison, cardiovascular health isn't just about the cardiovascular system. This is about overall brain and body function. We can just do more and feel better. So can you give us some more examples? Like, what are some things that we could do to build up a good mental fitness level of cardio?
Yeah, so cardio for mental fitness, I think is really easy. One of the simplest ways is to ask better questions. So for example, if I asked you a question like, what is a part of your personality that you are working on at the moment?
So you're asking me?
Go for it.
It's just very difficult being this handsome in a world that is, I'm just kidding.
This is why I love America. It's so good. Confidence,
I just thought about Zoolander, popped into my mind, and I just went with it. Let's see. Part of my personality I'm working on. Okay, well, go ahead.
This is cardio.
Yes.
Because you're having to think. It's not just a question like, what did you eat for breakfast? Yeah. And most conversations are like that.
Yeah.
Now, you've actually spent a few minutes being like, you know what? Yeah, actually, I haven't thought about that before. So now, go ahead and answer.
Yeah. I've been thinking about my thinking a lot. Like, I've been thinking about, what do I want to focus on, right? I've got all these options and opportunities and different places where I can make a difference in the world. And I know that I'm in a powerful position and that my life is going to be directed once I make a decision, it's going to go in a certain direction. And so I've been really just taking time to process, consider things like I've never done before. And so that's what I've been doing.
And I love that. And I think, so not only, yes, do I feel more connected to you and I understand, it's made me think as well. And so just a power of a question, never underestimate it. But a lot of us, when we meet others or even just our own reflections for ourselves, we limit to, okay, what went well today? What are we grateful for? All good. But just see, can I make my question a little bit harder? or a little bit more introspective. So just something like that made your brain have to think a bit differently. Really useful. But another really simple thing with cardio is learn something new, or whether it's practicing a language, debating. I think debating is a really easy way to do it, because at school, cardio is really high. At school, you are constantly, discussing new things, you're writing, you're doing a lot with the brain. As we get a little bit older, we tend to do the same things. So we're losing a little bit of how do we continue to just exercise it in that way. So that's really cardio. Just think you've got to use it so you don't lose it. And that's important as well, because if you look at our lifestyles, a lot of it is sedentary and, we're just at a computer. So just think, is there any way even moving the body is useful for it, but just how do I use the brain so that it's doing what it's good at,
Yes. And if you want an easy way to build in debate into your life, have a teenage son. All right.
Yeah.
Have a teenage son who's a contrarian, just like him and I are constantly going back and forth. But there's a lot of love. Don't get me wrong. But also, again, it's a challenging situation.
Yeah. And I'll even go as simple as crosswords, Sudokus. As you get older, the people who are engaging in those brain training games, their brains are sharper, stronger. So don't underestimate those things as well. Feel free to do some brain training or card games, board games. It's all really good for the cardio.
Yes. Awesome. Let's go to consistency, because with fitness, it's not something you do occasionally. It's the things that you are doing on a consistent basis. So with consistency, what are some of the tips and kind of takeaways? Because I think that we tend to try to get some consistency going when things are really messed up, for example, versus just a wellness consistency practice.
Yeah. So the regular reps for the brain is just so crucial, because the brain gets good at what you repeat, not what's true. That's really important. So me telling you to, let's say, do 5 minutes of meditation once, it really isn't going to do much. You might feel a bit better after, but it will honestly have no impact. The key with the mind is to go super small, but regular. Become the type of person that can just do one thing for their mind every day. That's all I ask. And so that's why sometimes I'll tell people, just do 2 minutes a day. Just 2 minutes. I'm not asking you to do hours and hours, just do 2 minutes. And I think often when we think about training the mind, we often have this image of you've got to be on a mountain somewhere meditating for hours. But really, your mental fitness can be integrated so easily into your day currently, but you've got to care about it. So before even asking you to get consistent, I would actually say, do you care about your mind? There's no point you trying to be consistent if you don't even realize the value it has. And sometimes I say to people, I'm like, imagine if you had to pay for your brain. You would take care of it very differently. You would train it a bit more often. You would update the software a bit more often. And so in the same way, go really, really small. And I don't mind what activity you do, but just go so small and stay with it. So many people be like, oh Maya, I tried meditation or I tried visualization. It just didn't really work for me. But that's like saying walking doesn't work for you. You're not going to see the result tomorrow, but it's only through the consistent repetition that's when you see the result. So it's not to say that we get scared of it or we should feel overwhelmed by it. But I think if you really want to rewire the brain, repetition is absolutely required. You cannot do it without it. Active training. Because the other way to rewire the brain is what? You have the most intense experience. Let's say you get bitten by a dog. Now from that moment, you are scared of a dog, right? It's such an intense experience. But we don't have that all the time. So we've got to be proactive in how we're going to retrain ourselves. And I think of it like this as well. So let's say for the last 20 years, you are someone who has been telling yourself that, I'm just an imposter in all these situations, or I'm not a very good mother, right? You have told yourself that so many times. So technically, you are a master at consistency. You've done it very well. Now, to change that, it requires a similar level of repetition and consistency. Because otherwise the brain is most familiar with whatever you have been repeating beforehand. And that's why if you can see it that way, you realize that the consistency is not just a part of the mental fitness, it is an absolute requirement.
Yes. You're always training. So for somebody who is, they made the decision they're going to start walking, right? So they're trying to get 5,000 steps a day. And the alternative, they've been training as well. They just train their body to be very good at sitting on a couch.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And again, we're always training, but we get to decide what we're investing in. And all the ways are hard, by the way. That's the thing too. We've been talking about this for a long time. Training your body to be very good at chair sitting is going to be very difficult for you in all kinds of ways. It might feel good in the moment or certain times, but the capacity to like train yourself to be physically fit and to be able to get those steps in, and that opens up infinite possibilities of being able to explore the world in a different way. Now, of course, you can sit on the couch and explore quite a bit, but so we're always training. And this brings us to the importance of rest when it comes to our mental fitness. And so earlier you mentioned, active recovery, right? Versus just being unconscious, right? Sleep is wonderful, but you just said the brain is super active during sleep. It's just doing different stuff.
Yeah.
And so you mentioned meditation, and you just mentioned also just being able to unplug, just to rest our mind, daydreaming, right? Just giving your brain and your mind just time to be expansive. We evolved doing that. We had no choice, right? You're either like working, community, whatever, or you just spent a lot of time in contemplation and in your own head. Today, the average person has none of that in a day. And then once they do unplug, then it's just like the voices start up.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I think if you think about it, your brain is working all the time. So technically it's like running marathons all day, every day. And again, after you've run a marathon, what should you do? You've got to rest. But so something that really helped me as well is differentiating between recovering, rest, and then recharge. Because a lot of people, they will just go straight to, oh my God, I need to recharge my energy. But one second, you've got to recover from, let's say, the day or the week you've just had. Then you've got to actually rest, actively rest, and now you can fill up your cup again. Because if you keep just going through this cycle of like constantly having super busy and then just rest, it's a bit too intense. And then the other thing to consider is there are actually 7 types of rest. So you have mental rest, you have physical rest, you have creative rest. So if you're a creative and you're always having to solve problems, that's tiring. You have emotional rest. Now, this is interesting. Emotional rest actually means that if you've gone through a week of quite like busy work, you've probably felt a lot of emotions that you haven't had time to really release or regulate. And so emotional rest asks you to think, okay, at the end of the week, what do I need to just be aware of and release so that I don't take it with me going forward? And that's so important. Emotional rest is everything. Then you also have sensory rest, really important. Your screens. I remember one of my clients was like, yeah, Maya, I've had a really restful day. And I was like, what did you do? She was like, oh, I was just like watching TV, just doing some admin and, just on the phone. I'm like, you've got 3 screens. No wonder your mind is still so heavy and tired because you're just looking at computers. Then we also have spiritual rest. And spiritual rest is taking a step back and actually asking yourself, what is my purpose? Am I feeding my soul? That's super important. So just also being able to ask yourself, what type of rest do I need today? Because sometimes it won't be sleep. Sometimes you can be so well slept, yet you still feel so shattered. So ask yourself, maybe I need a bit more sensory rest, or I need a bit more creative rest, or I need more mental rest. But ultimately, rest is part of the work and part of your mental fitness, not a reward for the work.
Wow. This is a good transition. Lastly, there was weightlifting being one of these components of good mental fitness. And using visualization is one of the greatest, if not the greatest, mental extraordinary, like the best gym ever. Being able to build really strong mental muscles is through visualization. Why did you choose this as the primary tool that you focused on for performance, for transformation? Why did you choose visualization?
Yeah, so if you look in the last probably like 20 to 30 years, it's become so clear now that the brain is always rewiring with neuroplasticity. But past the age of about 25, it gets a little bit harder to do it. We have to be a bit more aggressive with the training. And so visualization has been there for centuries, right? Athletes have been using it. They use it in medicine, even Stoicism, right? Marcus Aurelius talks about negative visualization. Now, the actual definition of that technique is the creation of images, environments, and feelings in the mind before they've happened. And it works because the brain doesn't really know the difference between what's real and what's imagined. And so because you can fire similar neurons when you are visualizing something, just like if you were to be actively and physically doing it, then you can actually take advantage of neuroplasticity, which means you can create new roads in the brain, you can rewire the brain, and therefore change the way you think, feel, and perform. And so a lot of athletes have used this to enhance their performance. They've used it in medicine to, let's say, recover from strokes or to help you, let's say, recover from injury. But when I dived into this world of visualization, there was so much that people didn't know. And I was like, why is this the case? Why does no one know how to actually use it? It's like people say it. They're like, oh yeah, why don't you just visualize this? What does that actually mean? How do you really do it properly? And so the more I've learned about it, but the more I've practiced it, and the more I've seen now others practice it and how they can change their lives, it really is a tool that has so much power to build a stronger mind and give you a very holistic toolbox to take control of your mental fitness. And that's why I love it, because it's not just one technique. There are several within there that you can apply to different areas of your life.
Yeah. I was pleasantly surprised when I found out about you and that you were championing this powerful tool.
Yeah.
One of our greatest gifts as human beings. But what really did it for me was how you utilized it for your own transformation and your own health. And obviously this is the Model Health Show. Yeah. And so that connection there was just like so remarkable because I've seen it practically as a clinician, but your story was so remarkable. And when you go through things like that, the way that you express, even what you've already shared, it's coming from a different place. And so can you share that experience that you had when you were younger and what led you to using some strategies with being able to visualize and just how you got introduced to all this?
Yeah. So growing up, I was pretty high achieving. I'm also from a South Asian family. So like education and achieving was really high on the list. And I also played badminton nationally. So visualization was something I was probably doing, but for different things in sport. And then when I was about 15, I basically just felt some pain in my stomach and a bit of constipation and ended up just going to the doctors being like, can you help out? They gave me some enemas. They were like, don't worry, it's just a bit of inflammation there. It will go down. So I was like, okay. Things were just getting a bit worse. So I ended up going back and getting some tests like colonoscopy and blood tests. And then that's when they told me that I had something called ulcerative colitis, which is an inflammatory bowel disease, but it's incurable. So a lot of people may know of like IBS, but IBD is like, it's a very, very extreme version where often people will either remove their colon or you basically just live your life on a lot of immunosuppressants and steroids. But I was a very positive individual. So I was like, look, I'll be fine. I can deal with this. And I kind of continued my life as normal. I, went to school, carried on studying. I was playing badminton still very competitively, but just things were getting so bad now, like so bad. And I never know how to really communicate what the next 4.5 years of my life was like, because it's like inhuman what happened. And I think the only way to really explain it is like day to day, I would maybe go to the loo or the toilet in, I don't know, America, about 35 times a day. And it's just pure blood. You are like screaming for your life just for someone to help you, but then you can't scream because the pain is so consuming that then it's slightly animalistic and paralyzing. And I remember so many instances, I'd like wake up in the night, I'd go to the loo, and because of just being on there for like 20 minutes and just that agony, I literally had no energy to just walk 3 steps back to my bed. So I'd have to just like sit there and just pray. And I think when you're then not in pain, you are fearing what might happen. Like you fear that, what if I have to go through that again? Because, the human brain is amazing. It just wants to keep you safe. But because it's just gone through such an awful experience, it doesn't want to do it again. Yeah. So then you suffer in your mind because you're waiting for it. And I would go through this cycle maybe like every 30, 40 minutes. And then anything let's say you took a sip of water or you tried to eat some food, your digestion is now active. So then you're waiting for that moment. And I just I guess in that process, you get so much weaker naturally, but also your mind and your confidence or your hope for anything, it just goes. It goes. And I went from being such a positive and I went from being a person with so much light in my eyes and for the world to someone who genuinely saw no hope. And that is so scary. It's so scary. And then, you get put on steroids, you get put on immunosuppressants, and you're having these infusions and you survive it, you're desperate. And then day to day, I tried to manage it by wearing like nappies. And so I'd go to school wearing nappies and then I'd have to run out because, I'm having an accident, but I'm also 16. So it's really embarrassing to be talking about this stuff to people. So there's a lot of shame. And it was just, yeah, I do not know how I was able to get through those days. Sometimes I sit here and I'm like, what the hell, And I think it did get to a point where I was like, you know what? I no longer want to do this. And I remember people being like to me, Maya, you're so strong. I was like, I just don't want to be. I don't want to be. It's not strong to me. Yeah. And then he was in hospital where at this point I had gone through every single therapy I could imagine. I was doing fecal transplants, which were illegal in the UK. I had gone to India, France, America to try every treatment, go to every surgeon. And there was just a part of me in my heart that was like, Maya, do not get the surgery. Don't do it. Don't remove the colon. Just don't do it. I don't know why. I really don't know why. And it was that night, this nurse, she came to my room and she was like, if you weren't laying on this bed, where would you be? And I got so angry at her. I was so angry. I was like, you're looking at this young girl who's been here for 2 weeks now. And you just asked her, oh yeah, where would you be if you weren't here? And I would have been at uni because I got in, but I couldn't go because I was, 35 kilograms. And then when she left, I closed my eyes and the first thing I wanted to do was walk again. That was it. So in my mind, I imagined taking a few steps in the hospital hallway and I felt it in my body. I really told it what it would be doing, what it would feel like, my feet on the ground. I was still in my hospital gown. And after that minute, I opened my eyes, and for the first time in maybe about 4.5 years, my mind was like, what if you could walk again? What if you didn't have to be bedridden all your life? And so naturally the mind pushes you a little bit. And then I started seeing myself walking outside with shoes on. Then I started seeing myself running, back at home, eating normal food. I even started seeing myself at uni now, or college. And I just kept doing it every spare moment I had. And then when I gained enough strength, I left hospital. And I was like, right, I need to learn about why this maybe helped me. And that's where I just dedicated every moment of my time to reading books. And these were people like David Hamilton, Joe Dispenza, it was Louise Hay. But then I was also looking at why athletes were using it. I was like, well, why did it help me walk again? And that's where it showed me the performance aspect of it. And then passion turned into obsession. And I trained with neuroscientists, athletes, I went on retreats, but the key was I kept practicing. I kept practicing every single day, to the point I was even doing visualizations. Like I would draw my colon and then I would see it, I'd close my eyes and I would step by step, hoover my colon up. I'd imagine a hoover taking all the bad cells and everything. And again, if you think about the brain doesn't know the difference, actually you can really, really help heal your body. So kept going. And then, I guess now we're 7 years on, I am the healthiest and most happy I've ever been. I do not have any symptoms and I haven't had any. I'm also on no medication, but I'm also not a doctor. I'm not the one to say this is exactly what you should do. It was my journey and it was grueling. You needed so much discipline. And I still don't know sometimes how I did that. But I can genuinely say the mind is capable of so much. And because the body wants to heal, if you can connect the two, so much is possible. So that is how I can sit here today, now teaching this, to other people.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. It hit me really when you said, you don't know how you survived. That was hell. And you survived so that you could champion this mission. You're special. You're very, very special. And, some of these sentiments like life doesn't give you things that you can't handle. I know you didn't want to hear that then, how strong you are. I don't want to be strong.
Yeah.
And the truth is your spirit is truly, truly, truly strong. And you're an inspiration for all of us. You're showing what's possible. And you also experienced a lot of, neglect, and you experienced a lot of, mental turmoil that most people would never even get close to. And to come out of that, so you're speaking from a place of experience that other people just don't have. And so thank you for that. Thank you. Even and I know you said the big I word. You said incurable, and even that term, even spontaneous remission, all this shit is just, we don't know how, but the truth is when you overcome something that is so-called incurable, you're speaking from such a place of power. That was in every word that you shared before we even got to this subject, and so, you're amazing. You're amazing.
Thank you. I do appreciate that. And I think, I will be the first to say though, that you don't have to be unwell or unhappy to get into this work, because now I continue to use my visualizations, not just for my health though. I'm using it for being the best public speaker I can ever be. I'm doing it to manage my emotions better. But I think you're totally right. And I always remember there was, there's that saying life happens for you, not to you. Everyone always used to tell that to me. And I'd be like, just piss off. No, why is a disease happening for me? Why? And I used to sit in my room, beg on my knees. I was begging God to stop punishing me. like when you have that humility to like go down and just be like, please, like, what have I done wrong for you to be making me suffer this much? Like, you really do have that level of like just surrender. And you really do feel that everything is against you. But being that victim, it does keep you there longer. It's so weird. It's like everything that I was reading and hearing was correct, but I just couldn't. I wasn't ready to, I guess, accept it, to then be like, you know what? Fine, I'm going to take this on as maybe part of my purpose, and see where it can take me in life. And would I do it again? No.
No, thank you.
No, but am I grateful for where I am?
Yes.
100%, yeah.
Yes.
And that's what I'm going to focus on.
Yes, that's so powerful. This reminds me of, I saw something with you and you quoted Einstein, but one of my favorite quotes, just in general, is the most important decision that you make fundamentally as a human being is whether you live in a friendly or hostile universe. Right? And living from one of those places. And you talk about this as well, just being able to deciding, am I living from fear? Am I creating from fear? Or am I living through love and potential? And it's so difficult, especially when things are not going well. And in your case, hell on earth, to be able to gather your mind and to point in a new direction. But that's how powerful we are. Regardless of the circumstances. And that's what's so remarkable about the human mind, is that regardless of the circumstances, you've said this multiple times, that our brain doesn't know the difference, right? And this speaks to something really important, the distinction with the brain and the mind.
Yes.
You're bigger than just your brain. Your brain is about automation.
Yeah.
It's about habituation, repetition. It's something you can program, and then you experience those programs.
Yes.
But you are bigger than that, and you get to choose the programs. Sometimes it takes time.
Yeah. Exactly.
And the beautiful part is you're another testament to, we can do this. Regardless of the circumstance, you have agency, you have power. And with this being said, being able to really orchestrate and to share with all of us now, visualization isn't just one thing. Right? There's so many different forms of this and different strategies within each, different applications. So let's talk about the different types of visualization. And I want to dig in on a couple. Again, it's all in the book. It's all in there.
Yeah.
But I want to dig in and just give people a couple of insights about maybe one or two of these. So what are the different types?
Yeah, let's do that. So I think the best thing to remember is that, I guess, life happens twice, right? Once in here and then once in reality. And so the first and probably most common visualization is outcome visualization. And this is where you are seeing results in advance. So let's say you are running a marathon, you would be seeing yourself cross that finish line. Even if you've never done it before, you cross it. Or for example, okay, fine, I was seeing myself, what does a healthy Maya look like? I need to show my brain and body it is possible. And that starts to build your belief and your motivation. Then we have process visualization. Now, this is where you are using mental rehearsal to make a process or task better, faster, more efficient. And it can be used for something like public speaking, running, even just your day. So if we use the marathon example, here you would be visualizing in like first person, and you are seeing, okay, what are my legs doing? What does it feel like? You're actually imagining yourself running, doing the movements. And again, a lot of athletes will use this to see their perfect lap or their perfect swing, things like that. It's not so much the end result, it's more the present moment. Then we have creative visualization, one of my favorites. This is where you use mental rehearsal to basically make emotions, pain, injury, very tangible. So have you seen the film Inside Out?
Yes.
Kind of use that as inspiration. So I would often tell people to, let's say, visualize their anxiety as, let's say, like a red fire in the belly. Now, instead of trying to suppress it or run away, or what if you just started to pour water on it really slowly, cool it down, and the brain will process an emotion really, really powerfully because it loves stories, it loves images. But most of us, we're like, oh no, I'm feeling anxious. Let me drink, let me eat, let me run away from it. Then we have negative visualization. I don't recommend this to everyone because if your brain is already negatively wired, and most of us are already visualizing negative scenarios, things going wrong, things failing, like that is where a lot of us are. But this is where you would see worst case scenarios and you overcoming them. So Michael Phelps very famously would see his goggles fill up with water and how he would handle that. And then when it happened in Beijing, he was super prepared. So it can really enhance performance. But then another application of this is what they did in Stoicism. So something called the deathbed visualization, or where you visualize yourself losing everything, lose your family, your job, your money, and it really makes you appreciate where you are today. And then lastly, we have explorative visualization, which is what the likes of Einstein, Walt Disney, Nikola Tesla used. So Walt Disney called it Imagineering, engineering your imagination. And it's exactly what you're doing. So your brain is like a whiteboard here. And let's say you want to think of a new business idea or you have a problem. You can start solving it, but in very new ways. So it taps into a different part of your creativity. Or like, for example, I create a lot of content online. So I will close my eyes and I'll just storyboard what I want the video to be. And then I do it. It just makes it so much easier. So those are the 5 types. I would say you want 1 or 2 non-negotiables. Generally, that will be outcome and process. Mm-hmm. Probably in the morning. So you would visualize, let's say, your goals, your character, and maybe a performance or how your day goes. And then I would use creative more sporadically or, for gratitude, things like that. And then the other 2, I would use a lot less frequently. But again, if you have all these tools, then you have such a good box to really use different things to apply to your life. And that is, I think, priceless.
Yeah. It's practice though. Practice. I want to ask you a little bit more about outcome.
Okay.
Visualization. And again, there's so many different approaches for this, but it's so cool, so fun. And it's really tapping into this power that we have. Like we are just walking around here with this infinite supercomputer capacity. And then we're just like, wasting it, watching Love Island or whatever. Respect, no disrespect, okay? But we are so powerful. And one of the strategies that you shared in the book was the Batman effect. Yeah. Let's talk about that one.
Yeah, I love the Batman effect. In fact, the background of my phone is my Batman effect. So this was actually created by psychologists for kids. And they basically told kids to imagine they were Batman. And they found that they persevered more, that they had a bit more confidence. They actually completed the task better. But since then, it's really come up in sports. So you have people like Kobe Bryant who had this like black mamba mentality. You also have people like Beyonce with like Sasha Fierce. And then, there's a player called Giannis and he's like a sheep, but he brings out this wolf in him. And so mine is called Meta. And essentially what the Batman effect is, you create a character for yourself that you can strive towards. Now, why is it really effective? If I said to you, hey, like Shawn, why don't you just be a bit more confident? It's like, okay, you're so used to being who you are today that for you to then be more confident, it's like, well, it's harder to know what to do or to start that habit, right? Whereas if I said to you, why don't you be more like Shawn 2.0? It just creates a tiny bit of distance from who you are now to who you could be. And then if we go even further, why don't you be like Spider-Man? You could embrace, his characteristics. And so the aim of Batman effect is to create what we call in psychology self-distancing, where you realize that, if this is who I want to be, and then I close my eyes and I imagine or I practice being this person, embodying their energy, how they walk into a room, how they talk, how they feel, you can start training your brain to become that. Now, before someone says, but Maya, that just sounds like fake it till you make it. I disagree. I see that as train it till you trust it. And that is how we can evolve our character. We can shape who we are based on identity change. And there's been so many studies, right, that show that if you're trying to stop smoking, it's a lot harder to change the habit versus if you're like, I'm the type of person that doesn't smoke. That identity shift is really powerful. And so when we can include something like the Batman effect, you can become a bit more confident. You can become a bit more empathetic because you are embodying this slightly third person version of you. So I do this with every athlete I have, every client I have. It's the first thing I do. Let's create your Batman effect. And it's amazing. Like Meta, who's mine, she's like half monk, half beast. And it means that she can go out on stage and just like absolutely smash it, but she will never sacrifice her health or her peace or her alone time. And that's why she has this very like inner monk. So she's got amazing boundaries, amazing. Now, it's been about 2.5 years. I've kind of grown out of her now because I literally embody that version of myself. But 2 years ago, I was not that person in any way. But every morning I see her, even what she wears, her body language, her energy, and step by step, I can fully say that I am her now and I need to create another one. So yeah, that is the Batman effect.
Boom. Oh, so good. So good. So this speaks to the power, truly, at the end of the day, we want some tangible effect or some tangible proof. Everybody listening, you're not going to be listening to this if you don't want to be better, if you don't want to tap into your potential, to live a full life and to live a rich life on your terms and to create and to love and just to get the most out of life. And train it till you trust it. That is so powerful. And I got to tell you, from my personal experience, I don't know, I cannot tell you whether or not the life that I'm experiencing right now, whether it's like, would this be here, be present, had I not visualized it first? I cannot tell you if I take the visualizing part out of it, if I would be here right now. It is so tied to my outer experience of life now. And it's kind of similar to what you just shared about the person that you are. And so that tangible thing, the thing that we know practically is that it is the person you become and how you show up in the world through what you're creating when you're visualizing. Beyond that, there's some stuff that we can't even explain. We can talk about sports performance. We could talk about improving, free throw percentage and 3-point shots and all this. All this is documented by doing it in your mind.
Yeah.
Right? And we can talk about the outer results that we see and what we, quote, manifest in our lives. And that's where we get into this slippery territory with visualization, because it can be synonymous with manifestation.
Yeah.
But you've been clear to offer up the distinction, and not to say that they're like in some completely different realm. But can you share that real quick?
Yeah. So visualization and manifestation are different. And I can say this because I believe in manifestation. And I think manifestation is this broad idea that if we can create something in our mind, then we can make it happen. Great. And we do have the ability to manifest things into our life. But visualization is the neurological mental training tool that rewires the brain. Now, the only real overlap is when people use visualization in the outcome technique, because ultimately if people say, okay, I'm going to manifest, I don't know, a partner or something or a job, they will visualize themselves already getting it or like already being in a happy relationship. Now, it's not that it's just like magic. It's just that you as a person are seeing the possibility of, hey, that could be mine, or like, I'm going to take action now towards this. So it's not that it just like enters your life. It's more that, you as a person are changing. So you see different opportunities, you maybe seek different actions. But then when we get into, process, creative, negative, and explorative, it's completely different. In fact, take negative visualization. That is a manifestor's worst nightmare. I am asking you to visualize everything going wrong. So when it comes to manifestation, that is like rule number 1 not to do. But the reason I think it's really important to make the distinction is because how you define a tool changes how you use it. I get a lot of people saying like, I made my vision board and I did it at the beginning of the year. Cool. And I don't touch it till the next year. The thing about visualization is if you can do it every day, like it's just like your physical fitness, you will really start to see results that are sustainable, where you feel stronger, where let's say, you're in a difficult situation and you're like, actually, no, I can trust myself, or I know my emotions aren't going to get in the way. This is all about training the mind. It's not about you manifesting particular situations. So I think it's just important to see the distinction in terms of one is really a technique and a practice. And then one is this broad idea that, yes, we have the power to create our reality. Absolutely. And outcome visualization is a great tool for that. And throughout history, you've got people like Einstein, who technically are scientists, but yet they still spoke about visualization kind of in that way. Then you've got people like Neville Goddard, who wrote Infinite Potential. Now, he talks about he talks about visualization from a Christian point of view and a very spiritual point of view. But then you've got neuroscientists like Tara Swart, Joe Dispenza, who are like, this is the neuroscience behind why, when you visualize, this can happen. And then you've got all the sports psychologists, Bob Rotella, Jim Murphy, Tim Grover, who are all like, well, actually, this is what makes champions. So I don't mind the language you use. All I ask is that you are at more of an advantage if you can see it as a mental fitness tool. That's really what it's about.
Where can people pick up the book and follow you for more?
So the book is out in the UK already, in America, 26th of August. So in all the normal book places, Amazon, shops, etc. Instagram is at Maya, so maya.mentalfitness. But I'm very loud on there. So only follow me if you actually want to get mentally fit. Then same with TikTok, LinkedIn is Maya Raichoora. But really, yeah, I love having conversations about this. And of course, if you're an athlete or a executive leader, then feel free to get in touch. But yeah, the last thing I'll say is that your mind is like a puppy, and if you don't train it, it's gonna shit everywhere. So you might as well train it.
Hey, if you like this video, make sure to check out this video right here.
Mindfulness, as I study it, has nothing to do with meditation. Meditation is fine, this is just different. It's the simple process of noticing. And when you're noticing, the neurons are firing, and 45 years of research shows that it's literally and figuratively enlivening.